can you describe il-highs tijak kif ikunu?
It's only in the last 2 years that I know them a bit better, because before I just thought it's me having fun, right? So in my head, in fact, most of my life, I used to see all these things of me doing a lot of work and say, oh yeah, you just have to sit in a room and like concentrate to do something. I don't know why people at Yamlu Ajab. And the highs are different. So sometimes the last big high, which is when I had realized, manifested in 4 days of me not sleeping, which sounds doable, right? Many people can do 4 days not sleeping. But when you do not get an inch of tiredness, and when I say not tired, I mean, let me think of things I can say without my wife going, oh, God, Rob. But I would do maths, theoretical maths, till 4 o'clock in the morning, learning new videos, which I could barely understand 10% of what they're saying. And with an A3 paper in front of me, I would keep going. And then suddenly I'd get horny at 2 in the morning while doing maths, and think it's also okay to wake up people and tell them. But
How many people, Rob? How many people?
Just the one in the household, thankfully.
Just one in the household. And so you were going through an intermittence of
maths.
Lovemaking and maths.
It sounds much more filmic than it is, right? Because I was sitting on the floor like an idiot with a laptop, just trying to figure out, for example, Gödel's rules or other mathematical complex things, which even till nowadays I read them and I go, I still find them interesting, but what on earth was I trying to figure out?
Right.
Like, I remember...
But dak il-punt tkun taħseb li qed tifhem dak li qed taqra.
I knew I wasn't understanding, but I knew brute force would get me there. Fis-sense, if I read it enough times, the next time I think of that word, these 10 words have to come to mind. And from those 10 words, I have to know what's happening. The thing was with this time, so the last
Kont
one...
imma verament qed tagħmel kont verament qed tifhem iktar imma by virtue
Yeah,
of...
by the end of it, for example, nowadays I can explain to you the video of Keith Devlin and the history of maths. He did a 6-speech Stanford series, 3 hours each, which if I play it at home, my wife will get angry. If she hears Keith Devlin, she's probably one of the few people who will recognize his voice and have an emotional outburst out of it, because I was driving her crazy with it. I'm like, look, 3,500 years ago, they invented the trebuchet and maximized it. That's crazy. They didn't have calculus. Like, even now, when I say it, I get excited. But if I say it to my wife now, she's going to still get angry, right? She still hasn't understood. Like, me being excited now is super normal, and a mathematician would just get as excited, right? But at the time, I wasn't a mathematician, and now I'm not. So sometimes she gets worried that my excitement is not justified. And that is where I guess the ruler has to come out.
Do you ever worry that sometimes your excitement is not justified?
All the time. Like, each time I smile, each time I laugh, each time I do something to someone, it is, for now, always in the back of my mind. Like, am I justified? Am I laughing too much? In fact, sometimes people get to know me in the beginning and they're like, this guy is quite quiet, like he doesn't show emotion. And I do, but I'm so cautious of it that for me, I know it's not a slippery slope, but I don't want to have the risk. Like, it's such a thing that's always in your mind, that you just always want to make sure like you're being normal.
Right. Imma hija kalibrazzjoni soċjali biex ħadd ieħor ma jgħidux għal kemm jitħaq
how he gets excited about everything.
Għalhekk hija kalibrazzjoni soċjali mhux li tibża li jekk ħatibda tieħu wisq gost.
No, I've learned
terġa' taqbad.
So during the hypomanic episode,
exactly
after, when I was trying to really properly calibrate, I used to look at a plant made out of plastic and get excited. People be like, I can make plants like that can't be too expensive. And I know that sometimes this happens, but when it happens to everything you look at, it is very tiring. In fact, I sat down on a sofa looking at a television, which I didn't switch on too much for about 2.5 months after. But yeah, nowadays, to myself, I still like to get excited about things. To others, I control what I'm excited about around people. Like, around you guys, it's always increasing, and I'll continue to increase the volume. Around other people, it will just be about the normal things, I guess.
Għamilt il-periodu tiegħek tal-ADHD bil-Ritalin. Kemm dom tuħu Ritalin?
Till about 2 years ago, So the week before I had the hypomanic episode, I was still taking quite regularly.
Right. Was that the first hypomanic episode li għattaj li kont tagħmel il-mezz?
I think it's the worst one. I doubt it's the first one. But when I was younger, again, I used to think this is just my character. So at random, for example, let me just give an example. I would be on the way to buy a car with money in my pocket for a deposit. Midway going there, I decide that I don't need a car, but I need a really fast bike. And by the time I change direction, I've called the guy, told him I'm not coming, so da konti l-moran dejjem ħanoħodha dil-Megan. But yeah, no, literally I left home saying, finally, after about 10 years of me with bikes, I'm going to get a car. And by the end of the day, I had a bike, a bigger bike than I had before. So there were a lot of them. I think at the time, especially...
Ma dak mhux hypomania, dak huwa
Eżatt.
impulsiveness tal-las biex da.
With graphs, when it comes to bipolar, it's sometimes all the time. So if I get excited about something, that's going to not amplify necessarily, but I'm going to think, I trust myself. If I'm getting excited, I probably have thought about this before, so it's not necessarily bad. When you're in hypomania, you really are sure of yourself. So this time, for example, it was more amplified, by the way, because I thought I had solved depression.
It starts, u bdejt tagħmel il-ment insomma u tqajjem il-mara. Kien hemm punt f'daw l-erba' tiem illi bdejt tgħid isma'
This is not wrong. This is not right.
This mhux normali.
Yeah. At first, I thought, oh wow, I solved depression finally. It's these pills. So I didn't tell Gabby at the time because obviously she had seen me. I had told her it's been years. So suddenly me going up with her, it's not solved. It doesn't make sense. Even in my head, nothing can be solved so quickly. So I kept it semi to myself, although it doesn't seem like it. But at first, that's what I thought. And that's why I didn't really hold back from all this craziness, because I thought, imagine this is me happy. I can just sit down and concentrate. I can be happy throughout the day. But no, on the first and the fourth day, when she came in back home looking suspicious and told me...
On the fourth day?
Yeah. She's a nurse, so she started realizing something was off quite quickly.
So?
She didn't tell me anything, probably out of fear that I'm going to tell her, listen, you know my situation, like why would you try to taint it? But by that time, I knew something was up. I was just counting down the days until something happens and enjoying it.
Were you hoping that she wouldn't say anything this could keep going?
It was wrong. It was wrong.
You felt like it was wrong?
I didn't feel it was wrong, no, but I knew it was wrong. I have...
What's the distinction? Sorry.
If I feel, it's my feelings. So, for example, I can feel like I love someone, but I know I love them when I sit with myself and I grill myself. Do your actions show that they love them? Do your reactions show that they love them? Is your...
Ġil meta bdejt irrazzjonalizza bdejt tgħid
yeah. As soon as she told me we need to go to Beppe, I'm like, yeah, I know. Okay, no problem.
As a stage, ġifieri?
No. By that point, it was pretty obvious that although this might be normality, it can't be all the time, for sense.
Right.
No one can not sleep and be energetic for 4 days. And when I say not get tired and not eat, not as I love eating. I know.
Kontet mura xogħol?
No, I know that it was 4 days I wasn't. It was a bit funky that period. I had quite a bit of a time away from work. I was very lucky enough. They understood me. They gave me 2 months at home and I worked a bit, etc. But not very functional. In fact, when I went to work...
2 months leading to those 4 days at night?
No, after.
So, okay.
In fact, at a point I did go to work and I told my manager, I'm going to demand a demotion. The person beneath me is extremely capable. I will make this transition as painless as possible, but I'm going to do maths.
Tiġi lura d-dar Gabi wara shift ix-xogħol, Gabi infermiera għatli.
Yes.
U tgħidlek isma' ħammur għal Beppe, u inti tgħidilha, okay.
Yeah.
Fimt li razzjonalment dik hija l-aqwa triq għalik. But mortu għand Beppe li qed nassumi għal psikjatra.
Yeah, indeed. Guy I trust a lot and his help.
So, u wasaltu għandu u qabatu rak dakinhar.
Yes. Thankfully, he realized what was going on. She told him, she asked at work, Isma, this and this is happening. In fact, as I know with the story, someone told her, here you go, I won't tell you. And then they actually told her, Isma, this is probably bipolar. So she was... And then I went there and he had told me, listen, Rob, you don't have depression. And he asked me a couple of questions. Are you very sexually...
aroused?
Parissa. Yes. Are you and I was excited answering him. He's like, are you eating? No. And then at the end of it, he goes, and I'm still thinking at that point, we're onto something. He goes, you have manic depressive. Okay. And I left the office at that, like a bit after with Gappy. I think they had explained to me at that point it's bipolar. And in my head again, I was still in the camp of, we've solved this, whatever it is. You could have called me a rabbit, like, Rob, we've discovered you're a rabbit. I don't know how to tell you this, but you're going to have to take these pills. Like, in my head, I'm like, if it feels 10% of this, I'll eat carrots all day. Thankfully, I don't eat carrots. Thankfully, I'm not a rabbit. But the pills are still more or less the same.
Mela, tlaqna?